Welcome to another episode of the Still in the Mud podcast. I am your host and sole proprietor, Big Al Jameson. And today, we got a question. Are relationships harder today than they were 20 years ago? Are relationships harder today than they were 20 years ago? We're going to talk about it. But before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, Still in the Mud. We are on every major platform, Still in the Mud. We're on Instagram at Still in the Mud 2026. Also, if you would like to help us grow, we are taking contributions so we can keep bringing y'all this good content. So if you rock with your boy, hit us on the Cash App at $ Still in the Mud and on Venmo at Still in the Mud. We appreciate everything. Nothing is too big and too small. So now I'm going to introduce our panel for the day. Coming to us from the ATL, it's the Young Bull Dub. What it is, young man?
What's up, Still in the Mud? Let's get to it.
And coming in, my DMV family, we got the elder statesman, the Grand Poobah, D-Nice. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Welcome, everybody. Let's do it.
And we got some queenship in the building. We got some queendom. We got Miss Jasmine coming in for us. How you doing?
Good.
All right. So, D-Nice, we're going to start with you today, homie. Are relationships harder than they were 20 years ago? Talk to me.
Harder is a relative term in my mind. I think relationships are more public because we have social media and everybody, for whatever reason, everybody feels like they need to be recognized on social media. But I don't think they're harder. I think the rules are you need to communicate. You need to be grown when you're in a relationship because relationships take two. The thought that we're going to be able to do 50-50 all the time is not necessarily a smart choice. But, and, you know, Al and Dub and Jasmine, please touch on the fact that, you know, the relationships need to be public. I personally feel if I love you and I care for you, I love you and I care for you. That's it and that's all. If you need somebody else to know it, then you need to take out an ad in the paper.
I guess I'll jump in right there, Big Al, if I can. Okay, so I think there is more difficulty today's day and age than 20 years ago for a few reasons. First, let's start with inflation, right? The cost of life is totally different than it was 20 years ago. So when it comes to courting, dating, whatever, I mean, you know, it's easy to run up $100 now on a date easily, right? It would have took probably an entire family back in the day for $100. So that right there plays a part in the relationship, right? Also, going back to your point, D, social media, right? Everything is public. Everybody has everything going on. But with social media, there's a lot of agendas being pushed that aren't genuine, right? So that corrupts a lot of the community, a lot of the thought process for men and women on what a spouse should be, you know, what a lover should be. And that causes more conflict because now, as you get into the dating world, people have this mindset of, oh, it's supposed to be like this, like this, like this. In all reality, love is not built that way. Love is built based off the two individuals that are working on their love. That is their definition of love. So the fact that social media puts all of this mindset into it is crazy. And then also with that, you know, growing up in the church, social media is toxic, right? We're far away from God when it comes to relationships as well. Like God is not put at the forefront as it should be, in my opinion. So I definitely think it's tougher just because one of inflation, two, there's a lot of toxic agendas being pushed, and three, everybody wants to be in everybody business and want to post every little thing about social media or on social media as if, you know, we're living our best life. And I just think that causes a lot of corruption. So, I mean, that's from a male's perspective. I can't wait to hear Jazz's perspective for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I I agree. Social media does kind of skew people's idea of what relationships should be and kind of distorts your idea because you think what you see somebody else doing, you should also be doing. But I see kind of a positive in social media coming specifically from the woman's side. I think that social media can sometimes bring things to light that you didn't know would exist. And I think that because I'm a woman, I see it from the woman's perspective. Like there are pages, there are things that exist where women post men that they're dating and they find out that the men are not being as honest as they thought they were. And I can understand the negative side to that, right? Because sometimes women are posting men just out of spite, but I think it also is like a protective mechanism for women to like post who they're dating, and then this other woman's like, "Hey, well, I'm also dating that man," and things that were in the dark are now coming to light. So I see that as kind of a positive aspect of social media, but I also can see how if a woman is mad at a man from the past, she can say things that aren't true, and social media kind of inflates that. So I see that, but I'm gonna take it a different angle. I think that the awareness of mental health now versus 20 years ago kind of I don't know if it makes relationships harder, but it makes people more self-aware. Like people are more aware of issues that they might be dealing with and other people might be dealing with. And so they're not as willing to put up with things because they're more self-aware now than maybe 20 years ago. I think mental health is kind of the biggest shift, in my opinion, about relationships. So it could make it harder, but I also think it makes it better. It makes people better, but it might not necessarily make relationships better if both people aren't actively working on themselves. So that's my opinion.
Also, to that, that was a great point. I think social media has taken away the genuine essence of approaching a woman, right?
Yeah.
Talking to a woman in person, those soft skills, right? That communication skills. And that's why I feel like a lot of relationships nowadays today's day and age has a struggle because I don't have to communicate. I don't have to talk. But no, you do. So that's one plus that I do give that 20 years ago time frame because social media wasn't big. So you see a pretty woman, you have to approach her correctly. You know, hey, Miss Lady, how you doing? You know, whatever your the little line was, Derek, I would need some guidance on that, you know, back in your day. You know what I'm saying? But I think that essence takes away when it comes to social media. Like that's a negative point of social media because nobody's talking anymore, right? Everybody's on their phone. You can't even have, you know, if you know your five love languages, right? If quality time is one of them, quality time to me shouldn't always be we sitting here on our phones. Yes, I get we're in the same room, but quality time should be in the moment as well. So I'm talking to you, talking to me. I don't care if we just sitting here watching what Still in the Mud podcast, right? We need to be in tune with each other. That's quality time. But I think phones, technology, and that's something nobody can help, but that communication part that has been stripped from the natural essence of being a human being, has been taken away because of social media. All I gotta do is jump in somebody's DMs or comment a little hard on somebody post, you know? But it's harder to walk up to a woman and say, hey, you know, how you doing? My name is William, you know, last name Jessup, right? So yeah. Big Al,
But
talk to us. Oh,
just Al, just 1 second. But that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. If we go back 2 or 3 weeks ago about grown man business. Yes, you can utilize social media as a tool of it, but I don't need to post online, hey, this is my woman, this is my man, blah, blah, blah. If she's mine, she's mine. If I'm hers, I'm hers. If when I walk up to somebody, I don't want a screen between us to introduce us. I want to be able to say, whatever I say, shoot my shot, whether I crash and burn or I ascend to heights. I know that I did it. With social media, do you really know that you did it?
So every little thing on social media, I think just maybe from personal experience, not just mine, but like friends and things, like when people are kind of reluctant to post on social media, it does come across as like you have something to hide. Not saying that you do, but sometimes it does come across that way. And that's just I don't know if men have a different perspective, but from a woman's perspective, sometimes it's like, oh, why does it? Because I've experienced like, not that I want to post the necessarily the person, but like if I'm doing something and I was out with this person and I like took a picture of what we were doing. And I wanted to post it. They were like, "Oh no, why are you posting me?" And it's like because we were doing something fun, and I don't post every little thing I do, but if it's exciting, I'll post it. But their kind of reluctance to me posting them kind of drew a red flag for me of like, what do you have to hide? Like, why are you so against it? But you don't have to post every time you buy me flowers. You don't have to post every time we go on a date. You don't have to post all of that. But if I want to post something and you are like, "Oh, why are you posting me?" It kind of raises a red flag for me. That's just my honest truth.
No, that's
And
a great
yeah,
take.
it
That's a
is.
really good take because I was gonna say, I guess it goes back to like your intentions, right? If we're having a great time together and like to your point, you don't always post. So in this moment, I'm, living in the moment. I'm enjoying being with you. I just want to post it just for me. It's not even for anybody else. And then you get weird, I'm with you. I'm gonna be like,
Why can't I post that?
yeah, what you
Right.
like? Why are we not? I don't even normally post. So now you're gonna take that away from me, which is now gonna cause a lot of, I don't want to say insecurities, but like you're gonna start rethinking some things at that point. So I feel you on that.
And
I
so I
feel
think
you.
that's where I think social media kind of helps to bring out things that wouldn't have been brought to light before because now like why are you being weird?
No, and
So
I get that, Jasmine. I totally 100% get that. And if you my wife and I before we got married, if she might say, "Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and post this." First of all, that's your social media. I'm not
yeah.
gonna say to you, I feel weird because I'm proud to be with her. I was
Hmm.
proud to be with her then. Social media and be like, "Why aren't you posting this? Why aren't you posting that? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you do that?" Let me tell you what I did. I said, she said yes on my social media. I said, we tied the knot today. But all the personal things that go on between us, great and not so great, whatever. Because life does keep life is between us. Now, if she chooses, we've gone out of country and she's be like, hey, me and hubby doing this. That's her social media. I don't have a problem with it because I'm here with her. You see what I'm saying? You gotta, you gotta. Part of this whole dating situation is knowing the person you're dating and understanding that, hey, part of dating and part of relationships is a certain part of hurt and a lot of trust. And if you're not willing to do that, that's where we run into problems.
I agree with you, D. But in that same token, it goes both ways. What if you wasn't a social media person before, right? And then you have somebody that is a social media person. That's
Okay.
rightfully okay, but you can't force me to post though.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I think this generation, truthfully, and Jazz, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but a lot of things be like, why don't we post? And you can't force me to do something I wasn't doing before you. Now,
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's different if you posted your whole life before and now we get in a relationship and you don't want to post me. I get it to a certain extent because now that I'm older, I understand the whole like private until permanent thing. I understand that now. Like I really do. I just think if you post everything you do, but you like purposely crop me out of stuff, like it just comes off weird. But I can understand if you just don't want people. I don't know. I think there's no good answer. I think it
Then
depends on
Jazz.
you as a person and the trust that you have between that person. But if you
Exactly.
feel like they're doing something weird and they don't make you feel secure in that, then that's where the problem comes in.
Then have the conversation. Have
Yeah.
the conversation. Communicate. Always communicate. Always
Yeah.
communicate. And it's more than just social media. You see, well, actually, let's isolate social media from the whole equation. When you're communicating with your significant other, with your date, with your person, that's a communication. And let's say, for instance, they say, well, whatever their reason, if you're okay with it, you're okay with it. If you're not, you're not. But I'm not going to tell you, hey, don't post that because I don't want that. I don't want it.
Yeah.
That's yours. But also, you need to have the same respect for me.
Yeah.
Okay? Big Al, you haven't said a
Well,
word,
that
sir.
I
that
was about to say,
that well, I was letting y'all cook, man. I think the I think it's twofold for me, because in a lot of ways I feel like people put too much validity into social media, because to a degree it shows that you care too much about what people think of you or what you're doing in your life. I've learned through my social media journey is that I don't like posting everything that I got going on with me. You know what I'm saying? When me and Chip got into a relationship, I made it a point to understand, even though I was posting things from time to time, and y'all see me, I don't post a whole lot on social media. I'm really looking, because I feel like I'm using social media to be able to keep up with my family and see what's going on with everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's not a everyday thing. I feel like the validity that some people put into social media is crazy, but at the same time, I can understand the other end of it, because if you're proud of who you with and what you're doing in your relationship, I don't think it should be no reason. However, I would say that if I have gone through the effort of introducing you to every person that's important in my life, every person that I tell you that I love, and everybody knows who you are, I feel like that level of trust, because I feel like to Jasmine's point, if we out and I take a picture of you and you say, why am I posting you, it does draw a red flag, because I haven't met anybody that you know. We haven't been around any of your friends. I haven't met you, any of my friends. You know, why not? But I think sometimes some people are really just private that way. I go by the mindset of everybody who needs to know that I'm in a relationship knows. Everybody that I care to know, it ain't really nobody else's business as far as I'm concerned. So in that, and that y'all really talked about the next question I was going to ask was, has social media ruined relationships? I think it's ruined it if you let it. You know what I'm saying? It depends on how much validity you want to put in it.
Exactly.
But then another question is in relationships, are people's standards too high? Like, do we, do we have realistic standards in this dating space, or or what you've seen? You know what I'm saying?
And Al, I want to just
wait a minute, D. I want to hear from Jasmine on this one.
copy that.
So, I mean, this is a question I've asked myself. Like, I'm 33 years old, and I'm like, not my standards too high. I just don't like that statement, because I think that people are allowed to want what they want, right? If your standards are, coming from a woman's perspective, there's a whole conversation around like a man should pay for everything, right? So if you want that, I'm sure there is a man somewhere who will do that. But I just think that what you want, there's somebody who is going to give you what you want. I just don't like the statement of your standards are too high. It's just you're asking the wrong person. I don't know. I want to hear you guys' perspective. I want to hear the man side, because I don't like that statement. There's somebody for everybody. It just doesn't have to be if you want somebody and that person is not interested in funding your lifestyle, then that's not the person for you. Does that make sense? That's kind of what
That makes sense. That makes
So
sense. And
I was about to say, you kind of touched on where I was going to go with it, where I feel like this generation, because of social media, I have to bring that back into it. People think like somebody's supposed to come perfect, right? Like got everything together, and we're not going like hard cut off as if we're not humans, right? I don't think there is the same grace that it used to be. And when I say grace, I'm not saying you playing with somebody's emotions and feelings. When I'm saying grace is like, hey, I made an honest mistake where, I raised my voice a few times, regular human being, relationship things that you could work on. The part of people's standards, I feel like social media has brainwashed people into thinking a standard is I got to be driving a 2026 Beamer. I got 2-3 houses. Like you said, I'm funding everything. I'm paying for it. Oh, that's not real. Like that's not building genuine. I'm now building based off materialistic things. And that's not true love. Like that's not true building with a relationship. A relationship starts from the ground up. We still in the mud for a reason. You got to start somewhere so that you could, go brick by brick. We want to build this house together. And I think to your point, Jazz, I think anybody can have a standard, but also be mindful of your standards to make sure that you also are meeting those same standards that you're giving out. Because I feel like that's a huge miss in today's day and age. I want you to do this, but I don't have to do it. No. That's not how we about to eat together.
Yeah.
Because at this point, why are you holding me here but you could do the bare minimum.
And it's all about different relationships though. Jazz, your relationship is going to be different than Dub's, it's going to be different than Al's, it's going to be different than mine. So if we see somebody on there who wants to post, who is funding lifestyles, who is doing whatever, that's their relationship. Once we start to judge our relationship by somebody else's, you don't necessarily have a relationship. You have their relationship.
That's why I
Right.
think it depends on what you want. You have to find somebody to match what you want. Like, I think that too, and if we're talking about standards, if we're talking about shallow standards, right? He has to be 6 feet tall. He has to make six figures. If we're talking about those, I think that the older you get, the more you realize, not saying that those things aren't important, because if I am able to take care of myself in a certain way, I think it's reasonable to want somebody that has a similar lifestyle, right? But I don't think that that should define, because you could meet somebody. Let's say you meet somebody who's I'm tall, so I'm 5'9". If I meet somebody that's my same height, and they have every other qualification that I want in a partner, am I gonna count them out because we're the same exact height? No, but I think that that is like a level of immaturity, and that's something that you learn as you get older, what's actually important. So if we're talking about shallow standards, yeah, sometimes people's shallow standards are too high, but the core of who somebody is, I don't think somebody can say that their standards are too high. Like if I say I want a man who loves God, I'm not budging on that. So if that standard's too high, then you got to go. Like that's so I just think that what your standards are and what you want, nobody should tell you that they're too high. If we're talking about like poor standards, but shallow standards, I think that those are things that you should be able to adjust. You should be flexible in that.
Yeah,
Well, I hate
and
to
that's
say it,
yeah.
as a short king, this generation for the longest, hey, you're attractive, but you short. I always envision my man to be, like you said, 6 foot, 6'1". When I wear heels, I want to be able to see. I'm nobody. You think I told God to make me 5'7", 5'8"? I didn't. I didn't do that. But I'm glad He did, because I am who I am, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But to your point, yeah, like I think this generation sometimes could get into the
Mud.
look of things instead of the
Get
feel
into
of
the
things.
mud.
Yeah, right. And I would say back in the day, I don't think it was like that. If a man loved a woman, if the woman was taller than the man, they would, that's who I love. This generation is how things look. Like it's the visual.
That's
But this
not
is
new,
what I
sir.
think. Oh, sorry,
That's
go
not new.
ahead.
I'm sorry, Jazz. That's not new, sir.
Okay.
Here's the thing. You can have your must-haves, and then God will give you what you need to have. And that is the truest thing that I can ever say. God said to me, work on you. Once you work on you, I'm gonna bring you somebody. And the day that God brought me somebody, it was, I remember the day. I remember the date. It was surreal because I heard him say, I brought you somebody, what you gonna do now? So, the core values is great. If you got some, well, he gotta be 6'2", or he gotta look like Shemar Moore, or she gotta look like Mia People, whatever your thing is, whatever your situation. You can have it, but you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
I think when you were saying that, I was thinking about one of the things that you'll see on social media a lot. I think one good thing about social media is it opens up discussions that you didn't know other people, like things people are thinking, you're thinking the same thing. You're like, oh, I'm not alone in this. But I think a lot of times when we talk about like the shallow standards, people will say, well, I went outside of my normal type, right? And I still got treated poorly. And so I think sometimes it makes it hard to like go outside of what you're looking for, because we still are looking at the surface and we're not looking at the core of who somebody is. And so you think that it has to do with the outside, but it really has to do with your misperception of who somebody is. I don't know if that makes sense, but I I just think dating is hard because everybody's afraid of getting hurt. Everybody's afraid of getting hurt. So everybody's scared to go outside of what they want, because they're like, what's the point of going outside of what I want if it's still going to end poorly? So,
Well, that's the chance you
yeah.
take, guys, and that's a great point. But that's the chance you take being a human. You
Yeah.
know, I I was going out with somebody before I met my bride, and I thought that I had expressed myself to the point where they understood where I was. But turns out that wasn't the case. Turns out they wanted to use me for monetary gain, and they did to the tune of $14,000. So I had to reset myself. And that's when God told me, hey, you gotta work on you. Once you get you better, then it's gonna be room for somebody else. And understand, when he brought me my bride, it wasn't the fact that I was done, because we're not done until they're lowering us into the ground. But it was enough work to be done that he saw me fitting somebody into my life. And that's just how it is. People want a hurt-free environment for love and relationships. It does not exist. Stop asking for it.
I think that's the problem with dating now is that people have been so hurt and people are so scared that everybody is not taking the time. Like you said, you took the time to like work on yourself. People aren't taking the time to work on themselves. People aren't okay being by themselves for a period of time to be the best version of themselves, to meet somebody else. And so hurt people continue to be in these cycles of being in a relationship with each other, hurting each other, then going finding somebody else, hurting that person. And now we just end up in this cycle and it's hard to get out of it. Like, it's hard because you don't want to keep dating people and keep thinking like, "Okay, I can see myself marrying this person." And you start investing all this time and your emotions into them, and it keeps ending. That's exhausting it. And I understand that that's a part of life, but it's really exhausting. It actually is really discouraging the older you get. Like, that's just the reality of it. So when I get into that space of, like, getting discouraged, I will take a break because I recognize that I can't show up as my full self if I'm in a space of being discouraged or in a space of feeling like there's no point to this. I'm not gonna be a good person. I'm not gonna be my best representative of myself. But people, I don't know if people have the self-awareness to do that. Of like, hey, if you're feeling this way, stop. Stop dating. Take a second and work on yourself and be content with yourself and be confident in yourself and then try again. Like people don't do that. So
Advice came from my aunts, and that advice came from an elder of mine that, sometimes you're not ready. And if you're not ready, you're you're just going to be where you're going to be. You're going to make the wrong decisions, the wrong choices. Many a times I've had to ask myself some tough questions. And I'm my worst critic, as I'm quite sure many of us here are. So that's part of doing the work, and telling yourself some unhappy truths or some unkind truths. And it's it's all about, to a certain extent, it's all about doing the work. And it's not fun sometimes. It's not fun a lot of the time.
One of the things that I wanted to touch on, 'cause I think y'all had a good point about being hurt and how exhausted it could be, and it can make you a little leery sometimes. One of the things that helped me get to a place of where I am, and I think because I have the relationship that I have now, is stop being afraid of being hurt. We have to get to a place, we're just gonna have to understand that being hurt is a part of the process sometimes. I know that it's exhausting, it's easier said than done, but at the end of the day, sooner or later, you're gonna get over it. You understand what I'm saying? Sooner or later, you're gonna get to a place where you understand, okay, this person wasn't for me. I got to reassess, get myself together emotionally so that when I'm ready to move on, I'm not bringing no emotional baggage onto the next person. I said a couple of episodes ago, one of the things that we don't do is we don't, especially during the get to know you process of dating somebody, is one of the things you have to do, I feel like, is you have to establish some sort of dynamic that works for the both of you. Jazz, you talked about your core standards and then you have your superficial standards. You know what I'm saying? And I think part of the problem with a lot of people have in today's time is they think that their superficial standards are their core standards. They don't understand the difference. You understand what I'm saying? I had a 50-50 conversation with a young lady one time, and she was just saying, if a man comes into my life, we not doing 50-50. He gonna have to do this, that, and the third. And I'm asking, okay, well, if a man comes in your life and he is able to do this, what are you doing for him? And she couldn't give me a straight answer because it was like, what do you mean? He's gonna be with me. I said, okay, so what does that mean? You
Nothing.
understand what I'm saying? So when you in the vetting process and you understand I would give advice to every young person who's out here trying to date. Pay attention to the little things. You know, the honeymoon phase is good. It's always good in the beginning. The first 3 months is always great. Everything, you know, he's your dream guy, dream girl, or just whatever. But then begin to pay attention to the little things. Pay attention how they move. How often are they? How much of a priority are you to them? Pay attention to the way that they treat their family, how they treat their loved ones. If they got kids, see what type of parent they are to their kids. Like, there are little things that you can see that can become red flags that you can block before it gets to the point to where you're getting hurt or getting your feelings hurt or whatever. A good person is always going to show you that they ain't a good person sooner or later. You know what I mean? You know, I follow the love language thing, you know what I mean? But I don't follow it but so far, because bad people are in every whatever genre, race, whatever it is you want to call it. But we have to start paying attention to the little things. In terms of standards, I think the core standards need to come from within and not from without. You know what I mean? Everybody likes what they're looking at. But at the end of the day, who are you as a person? Be the person that you're trying, that you say that you want in your life. You know what I mean? The superficial stuff is always going to be superficial. I think if a man comes into your life and he has a provider's mentality, and I always say provider's mentality because not every man has the means to be able to be the provider that he wants to be. But if he has a provider's mentality, he wants to pay for every date, and he wants to make sure that you're good, and, you know, little things like that. You know, just go ahead on and just go on and let it happen, because that's a part of who he is. You can show him who you are in other ways. So I think, you know, dating today is a lot more difficult because of the social media aspect of it. A lot of people care too much about what, you know, or they'll see something on social media and think that that's how they're supposed to live, and the reality is that ain't what it is. But that slides me. Oh, boy, you got something else?
No, I was just saying the provider part, because everybody's kind of touched on like the 50-50 or like the provider thing. I kind of want to name that, like, for me, providing isn't just monetarily, right? So as a woman, when I'm looking for a man to be like a leader or provider, it's not monetarily. Because right now I fund my whole life. Like, I don't need somebody to fund it, but I'm looking for like protection, like that kind of provision. Like, can you protect me? Do you make me feel safe? Like, those are kinds of things that I'm looking for. And I wonder if that's understood. I think that women come across and say, I want you to like fund everything, but they, they're looking for more than just monetarily, but I don't know if they know how to say that. But that's just what I was thinking when you were saying.
Well, you may be right, but the way that they present it doesn't seem that way. And it doesn't feel that way. And provision has a lot more to do with just money.
Yeah.
It's really infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
If you really think about it from, you know, on a basic level. But my counter to that is, for every woman that says that they want a provider, are you ready to be submissive? And submission isn't just cooking, cleaning, or whatever. It's also a part of the infrastructure. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of them, I just think that they talk and they hear other people talk, but they don't really know that. They don't really understand the meanings of what it is that they're talking about.
Because people don't know what submission is either. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That they don't know they don't really have a real idea what submission really is. But let me ask y'all this question, because we talked about provision and then submissiveness. On what level, like, are those two things optional in today's time? B, is it mandatory? Or C, is it conditional? What do y'all think?
I think it's conditional. I think a man should lead, but a man should also be submissive. I think it's times where our woman should teach us. It's things that we as men, because we were raised a certain type of way. Like, a woman might have to teach a man how to be emotional. Not in my case, I'm emotional. But, you know, for the most, you know, I got a few homegirls that be like, just men don't be vulnerable. Like, they don't have that mental awareness to just be like, hey, babe, I had a rough day. I kind of just need to lay my head on you, on you. You know, I just need you to rub my back. Like, we was always taught, like, to take all emotion in, keep it tight. You know, real men don't cry. All that false narrative, which is not true, right? So to that point, I 100% think that it's conditional. I think as times as men, we need to sit down sometimes. Look, we just need to sit down and shut up. And the older I get, I'm learning. That's the easiest way. Sit down, shut up, and let her get her perspective off. Or if there's a direction she wants to go with it. And then I also, I was gonna get to that. I was gonna bring you in because we was having such a great topic. I wanted to bring the audience in for a second. We had a lot of good questions and comments in the YouTube chat. So I don't want to go back too far, but shout out to Kevin McAllister. He said ego driven and gratification seeking defines social media. That's what today's day and age, that was his comment. Tiff said, standards have changed in this day and age because of unrealistic expectations. And that's the part of the reason relationships are so difficult today because social media is, brainwashing everyone. Sean, I had a good question. And, I definitely want to get into that, right? I definitely want to get into this one. Compared to 20 years ago to now, right? Because that was the root of the question. Does a man have to be the complete provider or can/should it be equal?
Well, that too, I feel like is circumstantial because it depends on where you are in your life at the moment in time. I think
Also
that
depends on your
relationships
relationship.
are less about teamwork now and more about either providing or being submissive. You know what I'm saying? When you talk about having a partner, I think of the word teammate because you're walking through life together, you're doing life together. If a man has the means to be able to come in and pay all the bills and take care of everything financially, and that's the dynamic that they have built together, great. But again, I still feel like and then let me also say this as well. Every man, even if a man is able to do that, that doesn't automatically qualify you to be a leader or qualify submission from a woman. You
For
understand what I'm
sure.
saying?
Definitely.
Part of the infrastructure needs to be able to build and show that you are qualified and that she can trust you enough with y'all's life to be able to submit in a way that allows, as long as it's allowing of the growth of the family and the growth of the relationship, whatever that looks like for you. There's really no, I said this too in the past, there's no perfect formula to what a great relationship is. There's no, everything ain't for everybody. So like I said, you have to take the time to really establish what works for you two if the person has true intentions of, you two being together. So.
And Al, with that being said, if this individual, if this man comes in, and if this adult male comes in and he's like, listen, I can pay for everything. I'll just write the check, boom, boom, boom. But treats you in a way that's unbecoming. Now, because he's able to fund you, what does that mean? See, each relationship is different. And that's why you can't judge your relationship by somebody else's. You can't judge your relationship off of social media and that's why communication between the two is so imperative. And when I say communication, you can talk on the phone, but you got to be willing to be in person to get those clues. And you got to be willing to listen, not to respond, but to understand what the individual is saying. Because as well as I do, when we get in some of those conversations, we're like, in our lives, we're like, oh, she said that. Well, I'm waiting. I'm going to say this. But you're not listening to what she's saying. So you're ready to respond. And if you think about it, if you play that back, somebody played that video back, you're responding to something you thought, not to what he or she said. So and one of the things that I promise, and I'm working on it. I know she's out there looking. Every day I'm working on it. Every day I'm working on it. Is I promise to listen. No matter what, no matter when, no matter what she's saying, I promise to listen. And I do wholeheartedly try. Sometimes I need a minute to digest, because sometimes things just come at you and you just need a minute. Okay. And you'll find out, like I found several times, she was right. Yeah, that makes sense. But I needed a minute to digest. So again, it's the interaction between the two people. And Jasmine, to your point, And to many of your points out there, find that person who's willing to do who's willing to love you through everything, through the great moments when we're dressed up and we're going out, we look stellar, to the ugly moments when we're both homesick and be like, ooh, ooh. Find find that person and understand that every day is not going to be great,
Facts.
but you got to choose that person every day. I am quite sure that there are days when my wife has D-nice headaches. I am quite sure. I saw a bottle of medication in the cabinet. It said for D-nice, take a bottle of wine. I get it. But also, we have to understand that we have to also not be so full of ourselves that we don't know that we can cause a headache. And we have to be able to listen and communicate. And social media has nothing to do with that.
AD, you hit something right on the head. I'm going to jump in because it kind of intertwines your response that you just said and Jasmine's. When it comes to that core, right? It goes back to that core values, right? And Jazz was hitting it. I mean, chopping it up, dissecting it, however you want. She was hibachi cooking when she was in that core bag, because that bag is important. Because to her point, like, if those core values don't sit right, and there's not a level of understanding. And shout out to Tiff. So I see the women are teaming up right here. Tiff said respect has to be a part of the foundation. So to Jazz's point, that core, right? Those core values. Because D-Nice, you stated just a few minutes ago, like, yeah, a man is funding everything, but is he funding my feelings? Is he funding my safety? Is he funding my mental, my spiritual, right? Like, that is very important. That was very key, which goes back to Tiff's next point. Tiff, I seen you in the comments cooking today. Well, communication and comprehension has to be a part of the conversation. And I think that goes back to that respect level, that level of sincerity, right? And that level of understanding and putting in work to grow together. And I just think that's something that doesn't happen too often is we have to put in this work. We just have to. And that comes from respecting each other. Like, I have to know that you're working, right? I have to see it. I have to give you grace that you're working. And I don't think we as humans, maybe today's day and age, just give each other enough grace. And once again, when I say grace, I'm not saying loosely. Now, somebody playing with you, cut them off. Cut their head right on off. On to the next one, right? Because your piece is important. But those one of those core values again. So like that is very, very key, man. Like, I just think, yeah, Jazz, you kind of, I ain't gonna lie, you took that one up, the core values for sure,
And
for sure. Big guy, go ahead.
Jazz, just really quickly, and just to touch on core values, people have these visions of what the perfect person is for them: tall, light skin, dark skin, whatever. Well, Jazz,
Muscular.
right? Jazz, here's the thing: I'm an albino man. Okay, I'm sorry, I am not what people out there are saying is the ideal. But my wife looked past the superficial and saw what I have to offer. And for that, I will marry her every day.
Hmm.
That's how it should be. I think again, that's the problem. Like, I don't think it's just people's activity on social media, but it's just like there's a perception of what women should look like, what men should look like, and it skews how people show up in relationships. Like, when we talk about like, does a man have to provide for everything? Does he give you respect? I'll go from personal experience. I've dated men who had no money at all, and I've dated men who have lots of money, and it didn't change necessarily how they treated me. So the money factor for me has kind of been removed or put to the side, not removed, just put to the side because I've dated a man who he paid for everything, but he was a horrible human being. He was a horrible human being, but I didn't have to I did not have to swipe my card for anything, but he did not respect me. He did not understand anything I said out of my mouth. He made me insecure because I'm tall. We go back to the superficial comments. He said he was 6 feet tall, but him and I were looking eye to eye. So somebody was lying and it wasn't me. So he like again, we can laugh, but like he called me a tree. So he wasn't I'm so serious. I'm so
I'm glad you
serious.
didn't tell us because we would have had to see that.
Yeah, as a
But
matter of
like,
fact, where he at right now? Where he at?
but
Me,
Yeah.
he,
Dub,
but I
And
didn't
Dub,
have to pay for
Dub.
anything. I didn't have to pay for anything, but that wasn't the
Yes, you did.
determining factor.
Yes, you
Oh,
did.
yeah, you're
You
right. I
you
did
paid.
emotionally.
Yes.
Emotionally, I had to pay for it.
Yes, you
So
did
like,
pay. So let's keep that. Understand that every part of you is important.
so
So
like
you paid.
that's why when we talk about these core values, that's what's important. Is this person a good person? Like, and like for me, again, my faith is a big part. The person says they love God, but do they act like it? Because anybody can say they believe in God, but what does that actually look like for you? Because this man was in ministry, but was still terrible to me. So like, what does that actually look like? And so yeah, the core values, that's where I'm at this point in my life.
one of the questions going back to this, like today's day and age to then, right? And I know we only did 20 years, which is like roughly what, early 2000s. I really wish we would have got a little bit further, maybe like 80s, 90s to get into that mindset. Because, back in those days, right? Like I will say it was perceived that, the woman would take care of the house, make sure the family was solid and solidified, the kids was okay, cook, clean, all that, right? So today's day and age, I think there's a misconception because now, like, it's a lot of men that like to cook, right? I like to cook. I know Big Al will cook. I know D Nice will cook. You know what I'm saying? And so, from a man's perspective, it's like, well, if I could do all those things, going back to Big Al's point, where are you putting in? Like, okay, I built the table and then I set the table and then you're eating at the table. What are you bringing else to that? Because in order for us to lead each other, right, I have to feel safe too. And I think in this generation, we as men don't always get that chance to literally be like, hey, I'm hurting too, or I need some help too. Like I don't think we get that. I think it, and I'm speaking on a general perspective that like we supposed to just have it all figured out, and in all reality, it goes back to Jazz's point before, self reflection. Right, being able to say, "All right, I don't have it all together. I'm telling you, I need help here. Are you gonna help me?" But a lot of people don't want to help each other. And yeah, that's where I was literally just about to go, Tiff. That's where knowing your love language comes into play, right? So like I can tell you mine. I like quality time, physical touch, and I'm a mixture of like words of affirmation and like acts of service. Like
Acts
I
of
like
service.
doing things for people. Like
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that. I enjoy, hey, you said you was hungry? Let's go get food. Or hey, you said you're gonna get your nails done. Yeah, I like that. I don't want nothing from that. And to who is that? Isha Four said, "Yeah, relationships are what you make them." And yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. But you have to have a form of understanding and open mindedness when it comes to relationships. You have to be willing to sit down, listen, and then build together.
Well,
Yeah.
let me speak from the man's side because it's a little bit older, and this is some wisdom that somebody had to drop on me. I think we as men, by nature, we're very visual, right? You line 10 women up, based off of looks, and 99.7% of the time, we're always going to go check on the prettiest woman first. You know what I'm saying? Men are visual in that way. So the one thing that we don't do is that we don't take the time to really, really discover who we are as just as a person, just as a man. And we don't really take the time. It seems like it's always got to be through trial and error before we understand what we need in a woman or what we want in a woman, because the visual and our biology, in other places, sometimes do the thinking for us without a without even like without even really realizing it. So I think until we understand the things that we need and that we understand is when we can be able to filter out, you know, through as Derek like to say, through the tall grass. You have to know who you are and what it is and who deserve, there's a lot of men out here who could provide financially, right? Who could come into your life and make sure that you never don't even know what the bill costs or whatever. But they don't take the time to understand that if the woman that they're dealing with, in a sense, deserves that from him. You understand what I'm saying? Just like women want a man to come in and provide, but what makes you worth providing for? You understand what I'm saying? Everybody who wants a provider isn't just like every provider ain't provided to be a woman. Every woman who wants a provider ain't qualified to be provided for. So I think from the man side of it, when you begin to understand who you are, just who you are as a person, and you know what you need, then you begin to filter out some of those other negatives that can happen, because it's the old saying, everything that look good to you ain't good for you.
I wonder what I know. You just said like what are you bringing to the what are you bringing to the table conversation is a very touchy subject, and so I think about it now. Like, instead of looking for somebody to bring something to the table, why don't both people look for somebody who has their own table already, and y'all put y'all tables together, and now you have a really big table. That's kind of like, I think, because when you're talking about like looking at somebody, how somebody looks, you should be also looking at how they live their life. And do you see them already doing these things for themselves? Like the things that you want them to bring to you, do you see them taking care of their mental health? Do you see them taking care of their physical health? Do you see them interacting with their family and their friends in a way that's positive? Like all the things that you would want somebody to bring to you if you were willing to provide for them, you should be looking for those things and vetting those things before you get into a relationship with them. And I feel like that's not what happens a lot of times in relationships for both people, because the same way men are visual, women are also visual too. And so you see something that looks good, but you ignore everything else because it looks so good. You're like, can't be that bad. And a lot of times it is that bad. So like look for somebody that has a table that looks like a table you want to sit at, and then put y'all tables together. That's how I think of it.
Yeah,
And
I think where a lot of women misconstrue the bring to the table situation is that when we ask what you bring to the table, we are asking those things. We're asking who are you? What makes you worthy of my time, attention, my resources, and things like that. We are asking those questions. I think women misconstrue what we're actually asking when that comes to the forefront, because we have all these standards and qualifications that we have to meet, but it's crazy when we ask the question, well, what makes you worthy of us putting in the effort to get out to want to give you all of that?
And I guess my question is, I want to clarify my question. I think the problem is, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. Do women ask men what they bring to the table, right? And I'm saying that because I think a lot of times women can see the things that men bring to the table, right? Does he have a good job? Does he have a nice car? Like those very surface level things. Like if I'm looking for somebody to provide for me, you can see those things. Is it hard for men to see the things that they want in a woman up front? Is it hard to see it? Is that why the question is asked? Like I guess I'm confused where that question comes from, because you don't see women asking that question.
I think it's I think it comes across as it can come across as retaliatory sometimes, because so many women are very loud about what their quote unquote requirements are, with men being a provider and being able to come in and pay bills and what they're supposed to have. I think the problem too is a lot of women, with the education and the money that women are making, they essentially turn into the type of man that they want. So when you come in with the expectation, so when you do finally meet a man who has bust his tail to get to where he want to be, and he gets to a place where he actually wants to be in a relationship and he wants a partner and things like that, it can be retaliatory, because when women say, well, I want a provider, he's got to be able to have this, that, and the third, it's just a natural defensive reaction that a man can say, well, what makes you worthy of me sharing all of this with you? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, and I guess my question is, how come if a woman says, I want a provider, why don't men just say, well, I want X, Y, and Z? Do
I
you get what
agree.
I'm saying?
I agree.
Rather than saying, what do you bring to the table?
But some men do. It's
Communication.
just that the things that we say that we want, a lot of women aren't willing to do. A man is always, listen, a man will always change for the right woman. He'll do whatever he got to do to make a woman happy. It's just not reciprocal a lot of the times. Because a lot of women want a soft life, but they think being a soft life is not having to do anything. You don't You really don't cook like that. You don't take care of home. You ain't giving me the you know what on a regular. But you understand what I'm saying? So it could be, it's relationships just seem like it's crazy nowadays. I'm glad I'm in mine, and at the end of the day, I would not want to be out here and be single and be dating again right now.
Big
And
facts.
yeah, and sometimes it's hard. It's hard because, like I said, we don't listen to understand much of the times. We listen for combat. And when you listen for combat, you're not hearing what the other person is saying. And that's why you might find yourself by yourself.
And I was gonna say, I guess, Jazz, I feel like why don't a lot of men just, like you said, ask that question or make that statement or boundary of what I want, is because I feel like women naturally, for the most part, there's already a standard of a man should have a good job, have a that. I don't. For men, I think we don't know until we meet the woman. I mean, going back to Big Al's point, like the right woman will make me change, right? So how what I identified that the woman I wanted, and then I meet a woman, I'm like, that ain't what I thought. Cause I might have had core standards, but as far as like their career, whether or not they cook, like all that might change based off a woman. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I won't, I like to eat, so that's gonna be a key part. But
Do you
um,
do you like to eat?
hey, listen, man, I need a good food, home cooked meal, ain't nothing like it.
But we also got to remember too, when it comes to finances, especially of a man who has a provider's mentality, we don't care nothing about how much money a woman makes. To be honest with you,
Exactly,
that's not a factor for us. That's not something
facts,
we would date. A rich man would take a woman that works at Wendy's and bring her up in a heartbeat. The reality is,
facts.
women don't do the same.
As
You
long as you're
understand what I'm
willing to
saying?
Biggie size the meal.
You don't hear stories. You don't hear Raj Richard stories where a rich woman met a dude who works in McDonald's and then she took him and married him. You don't hear that type of stuff. You've never really heard it, even throughout, whether it be the 80s, 70s, all the way up until now. That's not our requirements for what we want. It's not men and women's requirements. What they want in a mate or relationship is not the same. It's just not.
And
Yeah.
Jazz, before we not talking about you specifically,
I
right? So
know, I know.
you might grab a man and bring him up. That's the great, quality as you as a woman. So, don't
Hey, sir, no. What I was speaking in general, but
I don't know, but
there are exceptions to the rule. There's exceptions to every rule. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's just that for the core, for the majority, our expectations of what we want is on totally two different spectrums. So, but I got it. But before we wrap up, I got one more question that I want to touch on. Is marriage still worth it?
Definitely. Definitely. Once you find that person and you go through the fire and you cross the burning sands and you go through the vacations and you go through the sickness and you talk ad nauseum, you talk. And when you are in a relationship and that person, you just look over at that person and be like, God, it makes it worth it. You just have to be willing, Jazz, to be hurt sometimes and to sit under the bed, drink a little brown liquor out the bottle, listening to old Luther Vandross songs. And then the next day you just get up and get back to it, because there is somebody out there for you, and he's going to have a little bit of money. Not all the money, he's going to have a little bit. And he's going to come for you wherever you are, not ask you a question. I've got those dudes be like, babe, can you come pick me up? Where you at? Why you over there? Why you tell me? No. My wife called me. She's like, babe, come get me. I'm on my way. And I'm burning everything down between where I am and where she is. The why she there, none of that matter.
I was about to say, I mean, I think Jazz and I are in the same boat here. Neither one of us are married, right? So we appreciate Derek's perspective, but I think for the most part, I would say yes. I mean, why would I eliminate that on the table, right? Especially when marriage isn't a given, right? That's real. Marriage is not a given. But if I have a person and we're building and we're going, and I guess to Sean's point in the comment, communication will help continue and keep that fire going. And if it's lit, let's light it up, right? Like, well, why play with it? Why play with it? Because now I have, as far as like the epitome of a relationship, we've hit it, and it's not a given, and that's a milestone by itself. So I would say to that point, yes, I believe that marriage is still for sure, no debating, worthwhile.
I agree. I hope to get married one day soon, sooner rather than later. But I just think to Dub's point earlier, like you have to have grace for people. Like it requires a lot of grace on both sides for the rest of your life. And so I don't think people are meant to do life by themselves. So having a partner that you can do life with every day for the rest of your life, whether it's good, bad, ugly, I've been by myself long enough. Thank you. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're gonna wrap it
And
up. Great
just
conversation, guys.
and
We
I'll
really appreciate
just one
everybody
thing
for
real quick.
participating in the chat. Oh, go ahead, D. Go ahead, D. I'm sorry.
No problem. Just one thing. Next topic. Who is Grace and where's she at? I don't even see her. Where's she at?
Copy that, man. We appreciate everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for everybody who participated in the chat. Please please like, share, and subscribe on every major platform. If you would like to contribute to the channel and help us grow, you can hit us up on Cash App, the $ Still in the Mud, and then Venmo at Still in the Mud. Until then, we'll talk to y'all. Appreciate y'all.
You're
Peace.